readiness, and it seems to be that I use that all the time. Well, today I take a slightly different course of direction, and readiness really deals with the participants and getting them ready for retirement. Today we want to spend a little more time in helping you HR directors or business owners, plan administrators, trustees, fiduciaries, understanding your responsibilities, understanding some of the changes that are coming out, and also looking at why is this such an important benefit that is being offered, and also why are the Department of Labor, the IRS, Congress looking to scrutinize the retirement plan so much. So moving forward over the next couple of years, we're going to see quite a few changes, just in legislation about retirement plans, but also potentially in the way we operate. Changes does not have to be a bad thing. They're making changes. They're trying to make this industry better. And if we do a little bit, stay in front of it, with successful retirement plan. Again, the key is we have to be aware of it. We have good partnerships, good teams, and if you do all those things, all of your retirement plans that you're running or helping run will be successful. So let's get started and look at what we want to talk about today. So again, why is there so much attention paid to the corporate retirement plan space? As we go through this, they'll be fairly obvious, but it's good to recap because, again, this is a growing industry, and it's not going away. We'll look at the roles and responsibilities inside of a retirement plan. Too often, individuals have not had the training, they know that they're responsible for retirement plan, or they know what responsibilities that they actually have. So I want to talk about that, and there's a lot of misconceptions about some of the different terms out there, so let's cover that. And what areas are being scrutinized? We will do all of that because that could be an all-day webinar, and I'm not sure anyone wants to sit and listen to me talk for 8 hours. And ultimately, what can we do to use a retirement plan? And my thing, again, are always keep it simple. You can make it for you. You're to do that and have actions, and again, ultimately lead to successful retirement plans. What's so important about retirement plans? For individuals, their 401k is their largest asset class outside of their home. The difference being, you can't end your home, but you can send your retirement account. And Congress and the Department of Labor, the DOL, they're saying, yeah, we realize that this is one of the largest asset classes in America, and we want to make sure that this industry is being regulated. And again, sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad, but it's just what we're going to deal with. And what I make sure is, when new legislation has came out, I was cringed and thought this is going to be horrible, this is bad. Well, we understand it, and let's take advantage of it and use it, again, to make a better retirement plan. So there's top financial concerns. At this, we have categories 18 to 29, 30 to 49, 50 to 64, and 65 plus. Most of their concerns are from not having enough money for retirement, not able to maintain a standard of living that they enjoy, and not being able to pay medical costs, serious injury, illness. And moving forward, I think we're going to start seeing a real connection between care and retirement. They're going hand in hand, and when we start running projections for individuals, we're going to start looking at health costs because we don't know what it's going to be. We know there's going to be there. but concerns that I'm having right now. And that's why Congress and the Department of Labor are really looking at this industry. We know the depths of the market crash in 2007, 2008, early 2009, and very little changes happened. Most industries, when you experience a traumatic decline, the regulations that come forward. And I think as we move forward, we're going to start seeing some of those. And again, the message that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Snapshot of plan activity. Everyone's getting concerned. Average account balances under $72,000. Now, that's actually not that bad. So you say that's pretty good. It's going to be, if we look at the median account balance, that's the number most commonly found when you're getting that average. So what tells me is there's a lot of participants who have 18,000 or less. They have 72,000 or less. And what we're seeing is there are very few individuals who are really prepared, have a lot of money, have a lot of choices, and there are a lot who don't have that much. You can see 10% of participants had account balances over $200,000. Information is coming from the Employee Benefit Research Institute. Why it's important is one of the things Congress is looking at is make sure individuals understand how long their money can last and create more legislation that every account balance or statement shows what balance is going to look like in the form of a monthly payment. Some providers are doing that right now, but they want to go above and beyond that. And that's a good thing, because if you're 50 years old and you say, hey, I got $100,000, and you go, that's really good, when seeing it on a monthly payment plan, you might realize I have work to do. And again, that's one of the things, that's why we're looking at this, is ways to improve our industry. And this is really the golden goose. This is what's driving most of this. Approximately 10,000 baby boomers are going to retire every day. And we just talked about retirement plans are one of the largest asset classes out there, where America's liquid net worth is at. And those represent a large portion of that. And to retire, they're going to be looking at moving those dollars, either the 401k into an IRA, leave it in there, looking at buying annuities. Department of Labor and Congress wants to make sure that we're protecting these individuals, because it's one of the largest or biggest decisions of their lives they never had to deal with. This is the first generation of individuals that a 401k plan is going to be their primary source of income. The new experiment in the course of human history, individuals are required to save for themselves, and baby boomers are the first ones doing it. And Congress is going to make darn sure that they have rules in place to protect this aging segment of the population. And there are myths that come with this. When we sit down, a lot of individuals say, oh, I'm only going to live 20 years. Whereas a lot of them are living 30 years. If you look at life expectancies, it's going to be close to 30 years for a lot of individuals. Grandparents two sets of grandparents that were living proof of this. They both lived to be in their 90s, both sides, very fortunate. One, money for the most part, just had Social Security. She was fortunate that she had children who were to help and support her. The other parent owned a farm, and he was able to sell off land to continue to live that style of life. But individuals don't have that opportunity. And, it's our job to make sure everyone is in a good position to do this. The other thing is, a lot of people act, I can spend 7 to 10% of my wealth. Well, but it's not going to last very long. And in reality, it's about a 4% withdrawal rate. So $1 million, and you get $40,000 off of that right now. You'll say, can make that work? So $1 million is enough to retire. When you retire. higher. 5 years ago, $1 million was taking no risk. You could have $50,000 or $60,000 a year. You might be looking at, $30,000 or $40,000. So again, the thing's changing, and we want to make sure everyone's educated on that. So it was driving, why is this important? Because everyone knows, again, you need to be there. So let's make sure that this industry is doing those things. But more, and I think the area that gets skipped by a lot of individuals is your role. And that role is you as the HR director, as someone running a retirement plan, my role as a financial advisor, or whoever advisors or leaderships you're working with, what are their roles, and making sure that each of us understand those different roles. Running plans, and as we see as the Department of Labor crack down on enforcement, we'll go through, everybody knows what they're doing. And you're not assuming someone else is taking on this responsibility for you. So I use the example of the Chicago Bulls, and in the 90s, for our team, they're who we wanted to be like. And Michael Jordan had a very distinct role. He was the main guy. He was the guy who was going to score. He was the leader. And everyone on that team knew that. And he was consistent. He knew what you were going to get from him. He was going to go out. He was going to be Mr. Consistent. He wasn't going to be Michael Jordan, but you knew what you were going to get. And then Dennis Rodman, who was a little crazy, but dirty work. He did the things nobody wanted to do. They team, they had success because each individual knew what their role was. In a corporate retirement plan, you have a team working together. Because myself as an advisor or advisor you're working with, I control all the functions inside of your company. You're the HR director or plan sponsor or business owner, have the time to go through it and know all the investments, to know all these rules. So we need to work as a team. And let's look at a fiduciary, because I feel like this word gets thrown around a lot. Everyone says fiduciary this, fiduciary that. Well, what is a fiduciary? Fiduciary is who is managing the assets of another person in a special relationship of trust, confidence, and legal responsibility. In terms, you important job. You're controlling or you're managing the assets of somebody else. If you have any type of control over that, you are a fiduciary. And all too often, when sitting down with plan sponsors, they're a fiduciary, and know they're a fiduciary, they actually don't know what responsibilities they actually have. And they don't know the liabilities that come with being a fiduciary. So our campaigns that we're going out is making sure we're educating everybody on their fiduciary responsibility and identifying who those individuals are. It's really important in your firm is identify who is a fiduciary and make sure that you understand that. There's a lot of good information out there, and for our industry, it's our responsibility to make sure you're aware of that. We're going out this year, that's one of our campaigns, is let's make everybody understand that responsibility. Here's brochures, let's have a conversation about this so that you're prepared. If the Department of Labor comes in and says, well, you weren't meeting your fiduciary responsibility, and you said, I didn't know that, unfortunately, ignorance is not a defense in the court of law. So we're identifying that, and you should know very distinctly, are you or are you not a fiduciary? If you have questions on that, so myself, talk to your current advisor. They will help you through this. So there's 3 types of fiduciaries that we want to look at. First of all is a steward. That is you company. That's an investment committee. If you're a trustee, a business owner, you're probably a steward, fiduciary. You have decisions over run plan. And not just investments, but it's payroll decisions. It's sending out the right notices. It's making sure people get signed up for the plan. It's monitoring that advisor. So it plays a very, very crucial role, probably the most important role of anyone in this plan, because they're the ones who can actually implement and do a lot of these things, a lot of these responsibilities that a plan has. And I put a picture up here of an individual running with a clock because your businesses. Your responsibility, first and foremost, should be to make sure your employees and your business is running profitably. We're teaming with a good advisor who understands this and can help eliminate a lot of this work for you is really crucial, because it's hard to be an expert in every single area. When you're dealing with healthcare, you're dealing with employment practices, you're dealing with retirement plans, data, an expert to help you through this stuff. And investment stewards really do control a lot of assets. More than 5 million investment stewards out there that are part of an investment committee or a foundation or an endowment. And investment stewards, they control 80% of the plan assets of the United States. So 80% investable liquid is controlled by investment stewards. That's why this is such an important concept. That's why the Department of Labor wants to make sure they're doing and you have the training to do this. Unfortunately, most individuals have not had that formal training. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but what that tells you is getting with someone who does have that training and can help you through that. But we make sure that everybody's aware of this. So as we go forward, think about what your role is, and do you know what that role is? Investment advisor. Investment advisors, they're there to help in process, to educate you, to create a prudent process that you can consistently apply. Financial advisor would really be there to help to say, you know what, if something happened, someone step in, whether the advisor's gone, whoever, someone else could step in and they could follow the process. And to make sure that the plan is running accordingly. You know, you guys are the owners. You know, they're like the general manager. They're the ones who really are doing that day-to-day work. They should really be helping you manage this retirement plan. Financial advisor, this is where you hear them tout about being a 321 fiduciary or 338 fiduciary. And here's where there's a lot of common misconceptions about this. Advisor, financial advisor who has co-fiduciary responsibility with you. They will help install an investment policy statement. They will choose investments. But these of the plan are a part of that process. You're doing it together. But the advisor is saying, I'm on the same side of the table. I'm going to help you select those investment choices. A 38 fiduciary individual says, I'm going to do the investment policy statement. I'm going to choose and decide what investments to have in the plan, but I'll include you in that decision making. A 38 advisor has full discretion over plan assets to make decisions he wants. Many times you'll hear an advisor, or you say, we're a 338 advisor. We're going to take away all of your fiduciary responsibility. Or I talk to plan sponsors and they say, advisors to 338, no fiduciary liability. You can never eliminate your fiduciary liability. It will always be there. So the example is, if you have a 338 fiduciary on your plan, you have a duty to monitor that advisor to make sure that they're making prudent choices and that they're doing the right job. Why do you do that? You probably hire an independent third party to come in and do that. You have someone making the investment decisions for you. You also need to somehow evaluate how they're doing. And a multi-billion-dollar business, you could probably do that, and you probably should do that. But most businesses, a 321 advisor is really all that you would need. The advisor is going to include you in the process. So they're understanding what's happening. Ultimately, they may be the ones saying, yeah, we need to do this or not. They're the ones doing the due diligence. They're the ones doing the research on these funds to decide should be there or not. But you're part of the process. And you don't need to worry about, well, how do I evaluate this advisor, because you're a part of that. The thing is, again, if one or 338, if you guys are on your plan with one of those designations, and I think for most you should have one of those, it relates to the investment choices. So this will relate to referrals, getting notices out, and an advisor only takes on that fiduciary role with the investments. And what we'll see, most fractions with the Department of Labor don't necessarily come from the investments. They can getting payrolls in on time. They can have disclosures, or may match deferral. So you can never take on that role for you. Again, I want to make sure everyone understands the difference there. 321, 338, where those stop as far as the advisor's fiduciary liability. Thing as we go forward, as retirement plans become more specialized, folded it down there. You need to make sure you have a good due diligence process in place. You need, again, prudent process that's consistently applied. And you want to make sure you work with an advisor who understands that. A lot of good advisors out here who understand the 401k plan space. But as we move forward, I think we're going to see the advisor who has one or two plans, probably to some extent getting out of the business just because there's so many rules and regulations. It's becoming so specialized that they just can't have the tools and resources available to manage that. We have the investment managers. They're the third fiduciary in here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but these are the individuals running the mutual funds, managers on Wall Street running these programs, and the job as advisors and stewards to make sure they're doing the right job, to make sure the process to evaluate how they're doing. And investment managers, for the most part, again, they all do a good job, but it's how are you evaluating them and making sure, again, you have that process. Slide that I think everyone should really pay attention to: responsibility versus liability. The responsibility can be shared but not abdicated. No matter your advisor says between 321, 338, whether you have a great insurance policy, whether you've hired 20 people to help you run this plan, if you're a trustee, you're going to have some fiduciary liability. You always will. And it's important to know that, because now the trustee or fiduciary, can you be civil liable? You can also be criminally liable. There's a lot of responsibility to make sure that you're identifying this. And again, is where, and I've said it a lot, advisor can really help you, because they help fill in those gaps. Here's things you need to do to be protecting yourself and your business to make the plan is running smoothly. Move forward. I mean, who doesn't like to see an Ohio State mascot get hit? But blindsided. I'm sure when he woke up that morning, he didn't think he'd be getting hit by a 280-pound linebacker. And a lot of plan sponsors, that's what happens to them. They get blindsided. They don't see some of this new regulation. So this is where we want to talk about what are some of the new things out there. What are the Department of Labor looking at when they're looking at your plans, and be prepared for it. And some of it is just being out there. Again, legislation does not have to be considered bad. Most legislation's intent is to help individuals, is to help businesses, is to help retirement plans. And if you just follow these rules and we can help you do that, you'll be okay. President's proposed budget. We're in everything proposed in here, but I think it's a good thing to highlight some of this. We're looking at mandatory, they're called auto IRAs for employers with more than 10 employees. They're looking at it saying, If you do not offer a retirement plan, set up some type of deduction program on your payroll into an automatic IRA for individuals, and then they opt out if they want to be a part of it. Limiting the tax-favored benefits of retirement plans. This specifically is talking about pension plans, limiting how much employees can receive from a monthly paycheck. That affects many of us here because most of us do not have a defined benefit program, but it is out there. We're looking at changing the threshold to get into plans. So saying, okay, if you have 3 years of 500 hours, you begin to defer into a retirement plan. Against proposed legislation, but it's out there. It's important to know how it would change how we'd have to write documents. And right now, as most of us know, it's 1,000 hours in a year. That's kind of the most restrictive you can be as far as keeping individuals out of the retirement plan. So a 20-hour-a-week individual would be able to get. If you're less than that, probably not. So changes there. They're looking at accounts of $100,000 or less for RD rules. So if you're 70 and a half or older, the Department says you have to start taking money out of your retirement account. They're changing that, saying, you know what, as individuals are struggling to save, you have to do that. You should be able to leave the money there if you want. And they're looking at encouraging state-sponsored retirement savings initiatives. Illinois already has something in place. It's for 25 employees or greater. They're actually requiring you to provide some type of automatic IRA program there. So the changes that are coming in, one they're looking at has to do with annuities. We hit on that. But knowing how annuities can protect and give you income over the long term, because again, they're worried about individuals not having saved enough money. So the Department of Labor, and you've seen these slides before because we've been talking about it for a while, they had a 41% increase since 2012 in the violations they're looking for and the amount of audits that they're doing on retirement plans. There are 75 full-time enforcement agencies or officers. So they have a lot of resources to look through these plans. Almost 3,600 civil investigations closed against these plans. That's a huge number. 320 criminal investigations closed. That's just since 2013. So look at that. You say, they're out there looking. And we want to make sure you're protected and that your plan is running smoothly so you don't have to worry about this. About more than 73% of plans were required to restore loss to the plan or take another corrective action. So that's not having timely payrolls, not or missing employee matches. Those are things that the employee or the employer, they have to do. The advisor can't necessarily help with that. And that's another area where they're looking at. And if you have one of those corrections, do not set off, do not hold, correction as soon as you can. You self-correct, and when you do that, it's a lot better than having them come in and say, oh, you missed it, you didn't do it, because they're taking away some of your flexibility, some of your options. Inhibited Persons Pilot Project, this is new. You've been running a retirement plan, you have a history of payrolls, or your plan does, or just other infractions, they're going to be tracking that. So if you go to another one and you're a retirement plan, they're going to be looking to say, okay, let's look at this plan a little bit closer. So doing things to actively go out and look. They're looking for people who are misusing this plan. Now, it sounds scary, but what I can tell you is most plans run very smoothly. And again, it's very simple to do that. You just follow a few steps. You just do the right things. And if you think to yourself, does this feel right? It probably is. And as we go forward, again, those of you who know me, it's in the process. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be the best decision, but you have a reason for why you made it. You have to document, and that's what they're looking for here. So this is a good place to talk about a fiduciary file. You talk a lot about that. When they turn on, if you can have a fiduciary file, here's your investment policy statement, here's some of the other things we've been doing, that's very helpful. That's going to show them that you're on track, that you're doing the right things. If there were guidance, you probably heard them talk about this, definition of a fiduciary. Now they're having hearings in Congress about this. And it's trying to change the definition of fiduciary. This is more on the advisor end, and change the landscape of how advisors work with retirement plans. So if your advisor currently is an RIA or a level fee advisor, it's probably going to change a whole lot. But for advisors who are in the broker-dealer world, change how they're able to interact with retirement plans. This rule, again, all of these baby boomers getting ready to retire, they make sure the individuals talking to those employees are acknowledging that they have a really important role in front of them. They're helping these baby boomers make some of the biggest decisions of their lives, and the Department of Labor wants to make sure that these advisors are fiduciaries and that they take on that status. To become a fiduciary, you have to do what's in the utmost best interest of that client. So it comes a little more disclosure. So it's something that's proposed right now. We're not sure how it's going to change. Probably affect whether you can give direct advice to a participant and how you can do that. So it'll be interesting to see how this rule changes out, but I think this might consider the number of advisors who are working in the corporate retirement plan space, because you're going to have a specialized niche to understand how to comply with all these rules. So again, something to think about. It's more end, and as it comes out, we'll make sure we update you. But if you have questions, talk to your advisor, see how they're prepared. Are they in a position to comply with these new rules that are coming out? And the big one. This is the one everyone's talking about. This is Tybill versus Edison International. This was a couple months ago, in May, and I remember getting lots of emails, lots of phone calls saying, John, this is a game changer. This is totally different. We've never dealt with anything like this before. And I spent a lot of time reading these court cases, and I came to the conclusion, I said, this is nothing new. All I'm saying, or this court case is saying that as a fiduciary of a plan, a responsibility to monitor investments on an annual basis, and when you chose the initial lineup, you have a duty to go back and review that. What happens is they funds initially. 6 later, we're not necessarily prudent anymore. They didn't review it. They went back and sued and they won. And what was because they didn't do their duty. They didn't monitor it as closely as they could. So what it says is 6-year statute of limitations that starts every time you review those investments. Which sense? That's the way it should be. So again, as everyone thought this is a game changer, the media made a huge about this. There were so many new articles going out to everybody that you should have been operating the whole time, reviewing these investments. So we put some takeaways from this court case. Again, the duty to monitor investments, separate from the duty to select the investments. That makes complete sense. What knows does not necessarily mean they will be great in 4 or 5 years. Try to systematically consider all investments at regular intervals. Again, content stuff that you should be doing. To conduct regular reviews of its investments. That should be part of the investment policy statement. And fiduciary has the duty to monitor investments and remove imprudent ones. After that investment policy statement, the investment policy statement guides and determines how you choose investments and how you remove them. And you should have a process in place to do that. That is Tybill versus Edison said was, hey, you got to monitor your investments. It's pretty. So it wasn't anything groundbreaking. But I think it did do a good job of highlighting that, hey, people, we need to be looking at this stuff. A lot of times, the interviews, they get overlooked, but it is important. And then rollovers, FINRA, the Department of Labor, Congress, they're concerned with all these baby boomers coming up. They want to make sure that when people roll over, they know what their options are and making the best choice. So you need to make sure that, hey, you can leave the money in the plan potentially. And what are the costs associated with the rollover? What are the different benefits of that? So that'll be something as we go forward with these baby boomers. You want to make sure your advisor is talking to them about in the best interest of that client during these rollovers. And Congress and they're looking at that too. And then state funds. This is something that, for the most part, people have overlooked, and has overlooked it too, where state fund is a mutual fund where it becomes more conservative as you get closer to a retirement date. And it works really well. 80% of plans use a target date fund as their QDIA, which is a quality default investment alternative. So seeing these funds become really almost the most amount of money in the retirement plan, we're saying to look at them a little bit differently. When we do investment reviews, we spend some time on the large cap growth or the large cap value fund. How much time do we spend on the target date funds? I'll simply just use whatever target date fund provider. So if you're using a Fidelity, you use the Fidelity target date funds. If an Empower, Great West, you just use the Empowered Great West target date funds. Same with Principal. Any of these large providers. If these are going to be the largest asset class in the retirement plan, don't we have a job to look and say, what are target date funds? And all target date funds can be different. So there are two retirement, meaning that start aggressive, they get more conservative as they get closer to retirement, and then at retirement they stop. Any more conservative at retirement. They're doing at retirement, you're going to pull them out, move it to an IRA, and an advisor is going to help you build a income stream from that. Through retirement means that retirement date, that mutual fund or that target date fund is going to continue to get more conservative. So they're completely different philosophies. Most sponsors do not know. A lot of advisors don't know what type of target date funds that they actually have. And that's a big difference. What are people doing? If you have a plan where almost every retiree is pulling your money out, maybe 2 is just fine. A lot of retirees leaving their money in there, maybe you need to look it through. But you should know which ones you have. If you're in Congress, they're looking at that too. They want to know, hey, we find different ways to evaluate these funds. There can be discrepancies here. We saw in 2007, 2008, 2009 with these funds. A 2010 fund can have equity as low as 20%, and what is other that's normally fixed income, 80% fixed income. 2010 fund could be 70% equity and only 30% fixed income. These target date funds have different levels. Most of the time they have an aggressive version, a moderate, and conservative. Do you know which one you're in? Which one's most appropriate for your group? And with like a 2050 fund, these funds can be all over the board. So it's important to look at where you're at with these. And what do you do? And a bunch of people looking around saying, question marks. We covered a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff out there that we didn't cover. But the big thing is, again, having in place, documenting what you're doing. Because retirement plans are not going away. They're here to stay, and they're what are driving most of those retirements moving forward. Business owners are individuals, plan shares, trustees, advisors. It's our responsibility to make sure we're providing the best return available. And not only that, but that we're educating and giving the advice to individuals so that they can understand this. A lot of times this is foreign to a lot of people. So we make sure that everyone's understanding this, that they get it, and they understand the importance of this. So to do that, we've created what we call fiduciary precepts. pretty important if you look at them. Standards and laws and trust provisions. So keep current. Your advisor can do that for you. Diverse assets, specific risk return profile to your client. Every 401k plan should not have the same investments. Depending on demographic. Maybe it should have a more dense lineup because of the workforce. Sometimes a more white occupation, maybe we know that they have more investment experience. Well, we can add more investments in if we give them more choice. But we want to look at that. You should have an investment policy statement. Use experts and document your process. I've talked about that a lot. Control account for investment expenses. That's part of the review process every 2 to 3 years. Monitor the activities. What's your advisor doing for you? What's your service provider doing for you? This is going to avoid conflicts of interest. Whenever you're doing anything, if you feel like there's a conflict of interest, try to avoid it. Because when a conflict of interest, it leads to some type of problem. So when you're looking at all these decisions, talk to your advisor. See if there's a conflict of interest. If there is, look away to see is there an alternative there. Sometimes you may not be able to avoid it. That's where documenting is very, very important. And work with an advisor who's committed to this space. There's great advisors out there who can really help you through this process. And if you find one who you trust and you're committed to this space, that's really, really important as you go forward. Because I think, as we talked about, as these rules change and as this industry becomes bigger and bigger, it's hard to spend all your time worrying about this. Let else help you worry about that. Help you create a game plan to manage these. And everybody with this is one of my favorite quotes. The enemy of a good plan is a dream of a perfect plan. Too often when we're sitting down with plan sponsors, they're saying, okay, well, I want to make sure I have the best lineup. And you do want that. Or you want to make sure I have the perfect fee structure. You're never going to have that. You spend your time worrying about having the perfect plan, you miss out on just having a really good plan. Remember, they're concerned that you have the best of everything. They want to know why you have those decisions. What made? Have you done your due diligence behind it? So maybe you have a good plan. It doesn't have to be perfect. I appreciate you guys listening. There's a lot of stuff out there. If you have additional questions, my contact information's on there. I always joke I'm a self-proclaimed 401k nerd, so I love talking about this stuff. Out there. But again, let me know if you have questions. And
I want to thank John for taking time out of his day, and all of you to take time out of your day to listen to John. Do we have any questions? Does anybody have any questions for John? If you do, you can put them into the chat feature, or you're welcome to just speak up and you can take questions. If you have any questions, if you do think of something, you're welcome to contact John, and he would be more than happy to talk to you on a one-on-one basis. If you have any questions, I will go ahead and pull up the link. So if you guys could go ahead and fill out the survey for the next 3 minutes. I will pull up the SHRM and HRCI slide right after this. Thank you. thanks Debbie for taking the survey. While we were actually pulling up the survey, we got a really great question from Pamela, and it says, I have been trying to find a fiduciary training program and suggestions, and John has an answer for Pamela.
Yeah, so in these things, there are some out there for HR individuals to actually go in and get a certification and training on this, and it's something that hasn't been very common. If you want to take it to that level, we can talk offline about that and some of the things you can do to do that. But we're seeing it growing, and I was at a conference this spring that actually talked about that training program, so we're looking into that in a little more detail. Also, there are programs out there where if you said, hey, can we have some training, we can come out and deliver that training very specifically. We also have partners, if you want to keep it independent, that can come in and provide education. So it really depends on how in-depth you want to get. But there are options out there, so I say then we can kind of see exactly what we're looking to pinpoint, but there are definitely a lot of choices out there.
Okay. Everybody, as you can see, the SHRM and HRCI slide is up for your convenience, and we're going to go ahead and sign off, but we'll leave this slide up for just a couple more minutes. Thanks, everybody.